Hello, good morning, good morning, good morning. Hope everybody's having a happy Wednesday. We're live a little bit early this morning. We're going to be going out scouting for our hunting this weekend. So I'm up a little bit earlier, and we're going to go ahead and do the broadcast a little bit earlier in the day. Scouting for our hunting this weekend. Got good audio this morning. We're going to wait just a few minutes for those who usually like to get on. It's a little bit earlier, about an hour and a half earlier. So you'd be able to catch it later if you weren't able to catch it live. We moved it to 9. On our normal time, it's at 9 o'clock because that gives people on the East Coast the ability to, or West Coast the ability to watch it at what would be 6, which is still pretty early. But we have those that tune in. And I'm really excited about the Alpha Face podcast so far. Enjoying this season. Who knows what we'll do next? And let's enjoy it while it's here and learn and grow together. We're going to go out scouting for hunting today. I thought my whole deer hunting year was going to be a bust. Now, it's kind of different in Tennessee how they do deer hunting. You have to, put in, and if you get drawn, you get a specific area, specific dates. Well, we had went up to Tennessee to teach a seminar, so I was hoping to do some hunting while I was in Tennessee. Went out, was at my father-in-law's house, went out there, got ready to dial the bow in, make sure it was still on point, and ended up my bowstring snapped, my crossbow string snapped. So it busted my whole hunting trip while I was there, and didn't think I was going to get to do any deer hunting. Of course, we got duck coming up in about 2 weeks, and then I got sandhill crane hunting in December on a chartered hunt in Texas. But I didn't think I was going to get to do any deer hunting until a buddy called me about a week ago and said, "Hey, man, I have got a guest that I can take." And so you fill out this guest pass. And so we're going to go do some deer hunting this weekend and hopefully get on some deer. I've never went even hunting in Florida other than ducks. So pretty excited to see what that produces. Let's go ahead and get into today's episode and let's dive into it. Welcome back. I am the Electrical Code Coach from electricalexamcoach.com, and this is the Alpha Phase Podcast, where our goal is to be the number one in adding value to you. We want to educate, motivate, and inspire. Let's get to it. Let's take a look at today, this month in history. I've got it here somewhere. There it is. Let's take a look at this month in history. This month in history, on November 1886, the grounds of Ohlone Palace, that would have to be how you pronounce it, Palace in Honolulu, were illuminated by electric light for the first time in celebration for King Kalakaua 50th birthday. This event marked one of the earliest uses of electric lighting in the Pacific region, and a signal moment in how electricity symbolized modernity. For the electrical audience, this instance in November shows how the electrification was not just technical but ceremonial. It was a huge deal. We take it for granted when we turn on the light now, but this was a massive deal to bring lighting to your area. Lighting palaces, cities, public spaces, these were demonstrations of power and progress. When you inspect historic wiring, or you go wire on it, or heritage buildings, you are standing in the shadow of those first installations. It means thinking beyond the nuts and bolts and the wire and the breakers, lighting as a statement of transformation at the time. That late 1886 November installation in Honolulu reminds us that electrification was global and monumental. Like I said, we take it for granted, but when you go to a downtown, when you go to an area that's old, you may live in an area that's much older than we live here in Florida, that's 100, 115, 120 years old, where you go back and you're in a place that's 100, 200, 300 years old, and they were some of the first ones to get lights. You are literally standing in history. I love here this placard commemorating this electric light from the IEEE. So they were a part of this original electrification. Very cool, very cool. And the next one kind of ties into our history lesson today. So we started doing a history lesson at the end of each podcast, like about a specific component, like the capacitor or circuit breaker or whatever. Today's this month in history kind of ties into our lesson at the end of the podcast, so you'll have to stick around. On November 9th, 1965, a massive power blackout swept across nearly 80,000 square miles of northeastern U.S. and Canada, leaving around 30 million people without electricity for up to 13 hours. The trigger was a relay missetting at the Adam Beck station in Ontario, which cascaded through the transmission grid. For electricians, power system engineers, and inspectors, this November event is a classic case in the study of system protection, coordination, cascading failures, and grid vulnerability. It reminds every professional a small mischanged setting, a relay too sensitive, a lack of coordination can ripple into megawatts of darkness and economic disruption. In an inspection context, checking relay settings, fault paths, hierarchy of protection is very important. This 1965 event lives in those decisions. It's a November date that represents the power system at risk in dramatic form. One thing I want us to start doing, or want us to really get our mind wrapped around is, in this this month in history, is to just see how rich and how deep and how the breadth and the width of our electrical history and how many huge electrical events that you just never hear about. You don't learn about this in journeyman training. You don't learn about this when you're out in the field. There's a lot of really cool things, and we're going to learn about relays later in this episode and the history of them. There's so much depth and impact that the electrical industry has had, and nobody's teaching it, so we want to teach it here on our channel. Let's talk about the code of the day. This is the paraphrase code language. We've been in Article 250 this week, and I want to kind of stay in that thread. We're in 250.66. This is Part A, and this is when you're using a rod, pipe, or plate electrode. 250.66 is where we get our guidance on sizing the grounding electrode conductors. Remember, a grounding electrode conductor is simply the wire that goes in between the ground rod and the service disconnect, or the U for ground, and the service disconnect. So that's the wire that we're talking about here. Now, it doesn't have to be a wire. It could be a bus. It can be terminal bars. It can be all kinds of things. But typically, we're finding out in the field on your average installation that it's a wire, isn't it? We go from the ground rod. We got to get to the service panel. We usually do it with a wire. And in 250.66 is where you get all of this guidance for sizing this wire. Let's take a look at it. Hope you're enjoying your caffeine this morning. A rod, pipe, or plate electrode. Now, I want to chime in and say this is not talking about the cold water line grounding electrode. This is talking about if you decide to use like a piece of 3/4 inch rigid and drive it in the ground. That is this type of pipe that it's talking about. When connecting one or more rod, pipe, or plate electrodes, either alone or in combination, as in reference to some of the codes that we've learned about before in the ground rod installation process, and the conductor does not extend to any other electrode types that require a larger size, the grounding electrode conductor needs to be no larger than 6 AWG copper or 4 AWG aluminum. Let's go ahead and unpack this. If we're dealing with a ground rod, the wire that physically goes from the service disconnect to the ground rod is not required to be larger than a number 6 copper or a number 4 aluminum, unless it attaches to another ground rod on its way back to the disconnect that requires, another grounding electrode that requires a larger size. Let me make an example. Let's imagine that we're on this side of the house, and for whatever reason, the service disconnect is over here, and you've got to put your ground rod over here. Let's just imagine this scenario. Let's imagine you move the original disconnect, and the original ground rod is over here. You've moved the service over to the other. This is a good example. Let's imagine on this side of the house, you had the original service, and that's where the original 2 ground rods are. You can see them, and they're still good. And over here, they also have the cold water line ground. Well, you move the service over to the other side of the house, so you're going to move the grounding over to the other side of the house. You can take those 2 ground rods, connect it to the water line grounding electrode, and just run one wire back over to the service disconnect on the other side of the house. Perfectly fine. These ground rods would not be required to be larger than a number 6 unless we're connecting to an electrode that is required to be larger. And in this scenario, if it was a 200 amp service, that cold water line would not be allowed to use this code. It would actually be required to be a number 4. Meaning that if I wanted to, I could have those 2 ground rods, have that number 6 attached to that cold water line, but then from there to the panel, it would be required to be the larger of the 2, which would be a number 4. I couldn't, however, do that in reverse fashion. I couldn't come from the cold water line to the ground rods and then run a number 6 all the way to the house. I could, however, come from the cold water line to the ground rods and run a number 4 all the way to the house. As long as whatever one goes to, and I say the house, I mean the service, whatever the largest required grounding electrode conductor that makes the trip and traverses back to the installation of the service equipment or wherever you're establishing your grounding electrode system, that wire, whatever the largest one is the size that has to go back to the service equipment. Now let's talk about concrete encased electrodes, and we're talking about our UFR ground here. When connecting one or more concrete encased electrodes, as detailed in that section again, and it does not connect to other electrodes that require a larger size like we just learned about, the grounding electrode conductor does not need to be larger than a number 4, copper. So if you're going to a footing ground, it doesn't matter what size the service is. It could be a 10,000 amp service. It's not required to be larger than a number 4. And you might see something missing in this text, the aluminum piece. Well, why can you not use aluminum for this footing ground, or at least for the portion that connects to the footing ground? Well, the reason is that you're not allowed to terminate aluminum wire within 18 inches of the earth unless inside of an enclosure. And of course, all concrete encased electrodes have to be in contact with the earth by definition that we've learned about in previous lessons of what a concrete, what constitutes a concrete encased electrode. So with the code stating that you can't terminate aluminum closer than 18 inches to the earth, and by definition a concrete encased electrode has to be in direct contact with the earth, you're not allowed to use aluminum, at least for the piece that goes from the concrete encased electrode to 18 inches above the earth. So there was no need for them to put what size aluminum wire you could use when it's not required to be larger than a number 4 copper, and you're not allowed to use aluminum underground in this manner. This is important for us to understand because these 2 codes actually supersede the table 250.66. Table 250.66 is where you get your guidance for sizing grounding electrodes that don't fit into either A, B, or C of the actual language of the text. A, B, and C, I'm not going to cover C today because it's ground rings and we don't do those. But A, B, and C actually supersedes the table. So how I always do it is I always ask this question: what is my type of electrode? And if I'm doing an exam prep question, does it mention the electrode at all? If your exam prep question doesn't mention the type of electrode, you're going to go use the table at face value. In the real world, there's always going to be a type of electrode. So I always start at A, B, or C first. So I'm sizing a grounding electrode conductor. I ask myself, what type of electrode is this? Well, if it's not a rod, pipe, or plate or a footing ground, then I'm not going to use it. I'm not going to use parts A and B. I'm actually going to use the table 250.66 like we've learned previously, and you can check out for free at electricalcodecoach.com. Just click on the free version there. Fast forward all the way till you get to almost the end of the video, and it'll teach you how to size these grounding and bonding conductors from scratch. Now let's take a look at the funny pick of the day. You're going to love this one. Yesterday we had a winner for the best clean caption. They're going to get a pipe fill keychain. If you would like to be the winner today, you can either text me or you can put it on a comment of this video. All right, here we go. I don't even know where to begin here. So it looks like a lot of data, but some of this is not data. So if you look right here, I don't know if you can see me pointing. Oh, you can't see me pointing. That's okay. If you look right where that sink is, that is an extension cord and what looks like it is an air conditioner. You know, the little, the GFCI trip reset, that's what that looks like right there. And that's right where the business end is, where you wash your hands. So we know that there's at least 120 volts right here. I dare to say it's not GFCI protected. It looks like a bunch of data. I don't know, maybe you could use this as like a toilet paper roll holder. Maybe if you could shimmy. I don't know what you would use this for. Maybe a magazine rack. Keep your magazines up there. Anyways, the best clean caption, funny caption, either text me like somebody did yesterday, or you leave a comment down below for the best clean caption. It will win a pipe fill keychain. Super excited about that. Now let's talk about Tool Corner, and I'm actually pretty excited about this one. I was in contact last night. They actually contacted me, Racketeer Tools, and was excited about our partnership so far. If you don't know, you can go in the link in the description below, and you can use the coupon code COACH10, and you can save 10% at racketeers.com. If you've never been there, they have the craziest, funkiest, coolest tools ever, and today is no different. It's the Ferret. So this thing is an absolute beast, and it will definitely be going on my truck. The Ferret brings you the ultimate innovation in inspection technology. Includes a built-in onboard memory and the first ever non-contact voltage detector that is not handled to detect. And the first ever non-contact voltage detector that is not handheld to help detect live cable from a greater reach than ever before. So not only, let me show you what this thing is. Not only is this thing a camera that can look in the wall, it attaches to your glow rod. It comes with a bunch of fittings, as we're going to learn about here in a minute, but it's also got a ticker built into it to help you detect live wires so you don't get yourself hurt, burnt, scraped, or whatever while you're inside the wall. I want you to look at this thing. This is probably the coolest camera that I've ever seen in my entire life. Let's go ahead and take a look at this video here, and then we'll dial it in a little bit more. Now, I've got it muted here. Boom. All right. So let's take a look at this. I don't think this is the video that I wanted. There's a video of dude tugging this stuff in. Let's see if I can find it here.
Spy cam I tried today.
Whoa.
A little light on in my left hand.
Oh, okay, there we go. Yeah, this dude is actually, look at this. Now, I don't know about you if you fish wire or not. If you don't fish wire, this may not interest you. But for a lot of us look at, he's going straight in, surgical precision. Look at this. Flip it around. He's going all the way down in that wall and connecting onto one that he's already stubbed through. Look at that, my friends. My friends, I don't know what planet this came from, but I got to get there and get after it. This is probably the coolest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. My man just went straight down the wall. It would have likely detected if it was hot on any of those wires, and he came straight down and fished that wire in. I'm telling you, this is pro dealy. Let's go up and look at the price. I'm blown away by this thing. $273. Shoo, dog. But I'm telling you, and this isn't only for electricians. It's plumbers, HVAC, lighting installers, and more. There was another video on here. I don't know if we'll be able to find it or not. My man tugged this thing in a heartbeat. He was tugging in a can light, and it was... Let's check out what all it comes with. All right, here's everything that it comes with. Comes with a short rod with a magnetic hook. Comes with a bunch of little fittings. Comes with a flexible gooseneck hook, threaded adapters, USB-C cable. It's called the Ferret Plus. I think they might sell a lesser version. I'm probably most excited about it having a tick tester on it, the ability to do what it does by looking inside the wall. It's a great just inspection camera too. I saw the construction of it. It's got a ring of LEDs and then the camera sunk down inside of it. This thing looks beast mode. If any of you guys pick it up, let me know. I'll end up picking up one for the channel. I'm working with Racketeers right now to see if they want to go ahead and send some tools over, maybe be an official sponsor of the channel. We'll just see how it goes. They've been very excited about the progress so far that we've made in just 2 or 3 weeks. And you guys can save 10%. You use the link down in the description below this video or any of my videos. You use the coupon code COACH10. You save 10%, and it also helps the channel. So check this thing out. I don't think I can ever live without this thing ever again, and I will likely be dedicating a full video to this beast mode tool. Now let's get to know the coach. Would I pick a beach day or a day at the roller coaster park? I'm going to be honest with you. I love a roller coaster park. We've got our SeaWorld passes. I've been to Cedar Point, been to a bunch, Kings Island, all these different places. Love a roller coaster. Love to be scared to death. but I'd rather take a day at the beach, and I'll tell you why. It's one of the only places on earth that I am like without my phone for at least 2 hours at a time. I leave it up there at the stuff. I go down to the water. Nobody can ring through. Nobody can get a hold of me. And it's not that you guys know me, I don't run from anything, but it's nice sometimes to just disconnect. You're fully grounded. I've got my toes in the sand. You're relaxing. It's often beautiful. We take a walk. We're hanging out on the beach. I mean, it's just a good time. So to me, I would rather take a day at the beach than a day at the roller coaster park. You can leave down in the comments below what you would rather do. Now let's take a look at the code to remember for the day. This is Chapter 9, Table 4. I want us to memorize these next three. So we've done, after today, we've done 2. I want you to memorize these 3 because it's all of the keys to your pipe fill. Everything you need to know about pipe fill is wrapped up in this. If you don't know pipe fill and you would like to know, you can just go to YouTube and type in 7.1 Electrical Code Coach. And I have a pipe fill masterclass. It's free on YouTube. And you want to watch 7.2 as well because you're going to learn about these other tables here. But when we get to Chapter 9, Table 4, let's go to Chapter 9, Table 4. We're going to learn all about the raceway dimensions. So this is where, so you use Annex C when all of your wires are of the same size and insulation type. You use Annex C when all of your wires are all of the same size and of the insulation type. Meaning if I've got all number 12s, I'm going to use Annex C. It's a cheat sheet. If I don't have all of the same size, let's say I have a mix of 10s and 12s, and I need to calculate my pipe fill, I'm actually going to use a combination of Chapter 9, Table 4, which tells me the actual size of the conduit or raceway that I'm using, and Chapter 9, Table 5, which tells me the physical dimensions of each individual wire. Then I got to do a little bit of 6th grade math. I do some dividing, and I figure out how many wires can go in that pipe. So today, I want you to memorize Annex C if all of my wires are the same size. Chapter 9, Table 4 is where I find out my actual raceway dimensions. And it's a really cool section. It's not only good just for pipe fill, but if you want to know the overall diameter of a pipe and a bunch of other cool information that you can find, it's broke down into the different types. So you have a section for EMT, section for RMC, section for PVC Schedule 40, Schedule 80, liquid tight flexible non-metallic conduit, Carflex as we call it. There is an individual section for each one, and it's a lot of cool information, but it's the key to you doing pipe fill and being a beast at it. Annex C if they're all the same size. Chapter 9, Table 4 if they're not of the same size. And tomorrow we're going to memorize Chapter 9, Table 5, which will round this out and give you all 3 sections that you need to be in of the code in order to get this done when you are ready. Now let's do the history for today, and we're going to round out today's episode with the Small Business Coaching Corner after that. Let's rewind to a time before automation, when every circuit, every machine, and every process had to be started, stopped, and monitored by hand. Imagine a factory floor filled with noise, heat, and hundreds of switches that workers had to flip in perfect coordination. Mistime one, and the whole operation could grind to a halt. Then came one small device that changed everything, the relay. The relay didn't just automate circuits. It gave electricity the power to think. Our story begins in the early 1800s during the rise of telegraphy, the first real electronic communication system. In 1835, a brilliant American scientist named Joseph Henry was experimenting with electromagnets. He discovered that a small current could energize a coil of wire, turning it into a magnet strong enough to pull a metal armature. That motion could close another circuit, one with much higher power, the concept of the modern relay. Henry had just built the first ever electromagnetic relay. At first, it was a simple way to boost telegraphy signals across long distances. The early telegraphy lines lost voltage over miles of wire. and messages could fade into static. But with relays positioned along the line, a weak signal could trigger a strong local current, refreshing the message and sending it farther down the line. So think about it like almost a handoff of a baton. The signal's starting to weaken, but it's strong enough to hit that relay, and shaboom, it does it again. The relay became the beating heart of the telegraph work, the world's first electrical communication web. So we went from the telegraph to the phone to the internet to the amazing wireless world that we live in now. But that was only the beginning. By the early 1900s, relays had moved out of telegraph stations and into control panels, motor starters, and protective devices. Engineers realized that this tiny magnetic switch could make decisions in a circuit. Start this, stop that, wait until this condition is met, then energize something else. Factories began to hum with semi-automated systems controlled entirely by a network of relays. I love working with relays. It's so cool. In the mid-20th century, relay logic became the backbone of the industrial control. Before computers, before PLCs, they were relay racks, massive panels covered in hundreds of clicking contacts, each one performing a small part of a larger sequence. When you press the start button on a machine, you weren't commanding a computer, you were waking up a carefully orchestrated dance of magnetic switches. And in our history today, we learned about when that goes haywire and a relay messes up, it can throw a whole city out of power for, in that case, 13 hours. Then came the age of digital electronics. Solid-state components began replacing moving parts. Transistors, integrated circuits, microcontrollers. The relay seemed destined for the history books, but it never disappeared. Why? Because nothing else offers what a relay does. True electrical isolation, mechanical certainty, and raw reliability, and no need for any type of technology. When a relay's contacts close, you can hear it, you can see it. And when you need to separate control voltages from high power to keep humans in the circuit safe, a relay still reigns supreme. Today's relays live on in power protection systems, automotive control, and smart automation. They've evolved into a solid state and time delay designs, but the principle remains unchanged from Henry's day. Use a little power to control a lot of power. So the next time you hear that satisfying click inside of a panel, remember that sound is more than just a switch. It's an echo of nearly 2 centuries of electrical ingenuity, still guiding the current, still making the call. I want to encourage you to be excited about our electrical industry. We live in one of the greatest industries there ever was, and it's so rich and so deep and impacts everybody else's career. It's one of the only careers that you can get into that impacts everyone else's career on the face of the planet. I don't care who you are. It's exciting. It's an exciting time to be an electrician, and I just want you to know about our rich and deep heritage. Now let's round out with the Small Business Coaching Corner very quickly. We talked yesterday about some of the things not to say at estimates, and I don't want to miss a couple more. Yesterday, we talked about not talking down to the customer, not talking over the customer, meaning over them intellectually, especially in the code, trying to beat them down with your intellect. Don't talk over them in the sense of just good conversation, meaning you're not letting them finish and you're not listening. To not talk about scheduling too much while you're there, don't bog them down with your schedule. Don't bog them down with the technical logistics of changing the panel and getting the power. Listen, just fix it and solve their problem. And today I want to talk about a couple that we didn't talk about yesterday. And this one, if you haven't experienced it, this one may not make sense to you until you do. Not oogling the customer's goodies. And I don't mean their physical goodies. I'm talking about the things that they own. I have had a customer. Now, he was a different customer. Different guy. Super dude. Tons of money. Very eccentric. Different kind of guy. And he said one time something that really caught my attention, and I never did it again after that. He said, who all of your crew is going to be here? I said, well, I know my crew very close, very personally. He said, well, I don't want them guys coming inside. I said, okay. I said, they can they go to the bathroom in the yard? He said, fine. I said, okay. I said, we're going to be here all day. It was a panel change. He said, fine. We ended up changing the panel, doing a ton more work for the guy. Changed out every switch, every receptacle, blah, blah, blah. He said, they can't come in the house. I said, okay, not a problem. I said, why? He said, well, I had a guy come do an estimate one time, and I just felt like he was casing the place. And if you don't know that terminology, it means looking the place over in order to rob it or take something from somebody. He said he came in and kept complimenting all of my things in the house, complimenting my gun safe, complimenting this. He said, I just felt scared and worried. He did not get the job. And I get that. We can feel like we're paying someone a compliment or getting genuinely excited about something. But really, to people, it's their things, and they're there to have you look at can lights and new switches and receptacles, not to come in and oogle all their goodies. I don't know any other way to put it. And after that moment that he told me that, I never did it again. At that moment, I realized how often I did it. And I realized the uncomfortable situation that it could actually put people in, and I started training my men. You keep your eyes focused, and this led into another principle that I taught my men and employees that work for me. Was I don't care if there's a hole in the floor or an elephant standing in the living room. You don't look down on a customer ever. You go in and do your job like there's not a hole in the. I've worked in houses where there's a hole in the floor. You walk over the hole in the floor. You keep your mind focused on the mission. You're not here to talk about it. And I've rebuked guys, and guys, I'm telling you, you can lose your job in a heartbeat. If you come into my customer's house and you start talking about how nasty it is, how their things are, looking down on them, boy, they sure are a mess, aren't they? Buddy, this is the one writing your check today. So if you want to go sit out in the truck and change your attitude, you can do it. Now, I would never say anything like that, but I mean, that's how you feel on the inside. But you don't talk about the customer. And that's another one that the things that you don't say ever is you don't ever talk about your customer. And listen, I don't care what their house looks like or whatever. I am laser focused on the mission. And one of the things you don't do is talk about their things, oogle their goodies. And that seems a little obscure, but trust me. You just got to trust me on some of this stuff. Now let's talk about don't talk political when you're at an estimate. You might feel like you're thumping for the right cause, but you have no idea what side your customer's on. And even if they are on a certain side, don't use your business as some personal political platform. You guys know that I'm a Christian. I never go into someone's house thumping Christianity ever. If they don't see it in who I am, which they do, by the way, they can tell if you've got the light or not. It's not on my business cards. It's not on my truck. I don't leave a job saying God bless you. But I tell you what, I've had customers ask me to pray for them, and I've never said the name of Jesus or said that I was a Christian ever. I do it here on this channel because it's what I want to do, and I feel like it's part of my platform. But I never do it when I'm out in business, ever. Ever would I talk about my religion, my political stance, or anything like that, and I don't get sucked in when the customer tries to do it. They'll try to suck you in just a moment to get you hyped up, juiced up, and talking about politics or religion while you are there at work. You are there to work. If you want to let your light shine, let it glow from who you are, how you act, how you speak, how you talk to them, how you deal, how you always show up on time. And if you want to talk about politics at work, my friend, you are going to lose a lot of work. I know people, you can cut off literally half the market if you really want to thump all of your politics. And I want all of the market. I've worked for every type of person, every nationality, every gender association, every lifestyle. I don't care where you're at or where you're from. I want to serve you on the highest level, and I want to treat you like you are made in the image of God, and I want to treat you like a citizen of this country. Does that make sense? So listen to me. Keep your politics and your religion to yourself. Don't put it on your business card, and if you do, be careful. You're carrying around the name of your God. Be real careful how you act and think, because a lot of people, when you don't act in the way that they feel like you should, the first thing they do is they run your name, the name of your God down. And do you want to be known for, when I get to heaven, do I want to hear, well, you wore this on your truck, and every time somebody saw you not do right or cut somebody off in traffic, they brought my name up because of you. I'm trying to think of what part of the Bible says that it says the name of God is blasphemed among the Gentiles because of you. Now, it was a quote from another part, but whoever wants to be the person that the name of God is blasphemed among non-believers because of you. not me, friend. So you won't hear me thumping it out in the business world. You'll hear me talk about it and share my faith here. I feel like this is part of my platform. You don't have to listen to it. I respect that. You'll find in business that if you don't learn to respect every color, nationality, race, gender association, every part of politics, you're going to find yourself always wanting, cutting out any part of the market. You know how much of the market I want? I want all of it. So you don't talk about your politics and religion, and you definitely do not cuss at an estimate. This is the last and final piece for today. I've got to jump off here and get ready to go. Never, under any circumstance, will you cuss at an estimate. People don't talk like that. Successful people don't talk like that. You can, there's I'm not going to say any names. There's the gurus online, the hotshot businessmen, all of these dudes. They might cuss and carry on like that, but real successful, ultra high performing business people, they don't talk like that, because that level of talk doesn't produce this rich, dynamic, amazing life. Now, if you've got money and you're arrogant, you can talk however you want. But when you go into someone's house and you're in their home, never assume that someone is a cusser. I'm telling you, it's a breach. And if you're a salesman, I cannot tell you how many sales have been lost with me, from tool salesmen to realtors, from everybody in between. When you start cussing at an interaction with me and you're trying to sell me something, I'm telling you, my friend, you have lost that sale faster than you've opened your mouth. As soon as that word comes out of your mouth, it's gone. Listen, I used to cuss like a sailor. I was rough as a cop. You didn't know me. I was on drugs for a decade. The wildest life, party life you've ever seen. And I cussed every other breath out of my mouth. And now I realize how unattractive it is, how it is a detriment to my business. You know what? I want you to dress like the check that you want to cash. I want you to talk like the check that you want to cash. I want you to live a life like the check that you want to cash. And life's not about money. You know how I feel about it. But I want you to live a life and dress in a way and carry yourself in a way for the level that you want to be at in life. And what I mean by the check that you want to cash, you can dress and talk one way, and likely your income's going to fall in one range, and your reach and your impact and your growth and your mindset. You can look and dress and talk another way and likely hit a different level of income, growth, and mindset. Now, it's not all about clothes. You know, none of that stuff matters. It's about personal integrity. But I tell you what, God sees on the inside, but guess what man sees? He sees on the outside, doesn't he? So I encourage you, run your business with ultra high integrity. Never cuss in front of a customer. Never talk about politics. And be careful how you talk about their things. You may be thinking you're complimenting it, but you're not. You may say something, oh, that's an interesting piece of furniture and it looks ugly as sin, but it was a Mima's furniture that was handed down from 3 generations ago. Treat your customers with respect. And I'm going to boil it down today like I did yesterday. It all boils down to this. Treat your customers like you want to be treated. If you want someone to come into your home and not talk about your things, then don't talk about their things. If you want someone to come along and not talk about their political views or religious views with you when you're just trying to do business, listen to me. Don't do it to somebody else. And at the same time, make sure that you talk and with a level of speech when it comes to the customer that you want to be talked like with. Nobody wants to be cussed or cuss around or talk dirty joke. I've had like salesmen try to tell me dirty jokes and stuff. I'm like, and these are like phone salesmen that sell tools. And I bought from them in the past. They're like, hey, Perry, you want to buy again? And then he starts telling me a joke about some blondes. I'm like, I rebuked him. I said, bro, successful people don't talk like that. I bought from you in the past. I'm never buying you from again. Don't tell me a joke about some 2 blondes. I don't care. Listen to me. I'm telling you, if you want to be successful, if you want to raise up your family, break the chains, and go to a new level of life, you've got to go to a new level of action. And that action comes in the form of new speech, new conduct, new ways of thinking, new things that you don't do, new things that you do. I want to see you rise up from where you're at. There is no reason that you cannot double your income in the next 12 months just by making a few modifications and adjustments. You don't need a new president. You don't need a new Congress. You don't need a whole new career. You just need to make some small modifications and adjustments and decide that your new standard is going to be XYZ. And every time you raise that standard, you will not raise to the level of your goals, but you will fall to the level of your standards. You have got a standard right now. It might be to pay your bills on time every month. That's a standard. It might be to pay your bills most of the time. It might be to have enough to pay your bills and put money in the bank. Your standard might be to have enough money to pay your bills and somebody else's bills. But what I'm telling you is whatever that standard is, you've got one now. Now all you got to do is raise that standard. I am the electrical code coach, and my bargain is that these videos will add value to you, and you will in turn add value to others. This is the Alpha Face podcast, but there is one who is the alpha of alphas, and he's the one that gives me the grit, the determination, the grind to do everything that I'm called to do, and his name is Jesus, and he'll do the same for you. I share my faith on this channel. These podcasts are free. I'm not interested in selling you anything. I just want to see you win. And part of it, I know, and the reason I share my faith on this channel, I want you to listen to me. I know that you'll only get to a certain level of success without God in your life. You'll get so high, you'll work in your own strength, you'll get up so far, but until you go to that next level, listen to me, you will not do it without God and without the proper channels and the way that you use and invest your money. Trust me, it works every single time, 10 times out of 10. And you're going to hit a roadblock. And I'm the electrical code coach. A lot of you call me for coaching. When you get to this certain point in your level and career, there is like a roadblock without God in your life. That's why I share my faith. I don't want anything from you. You don't ever have to buy a product from me. I literally have dedicated my life to watch you win and adding value to you. So take it for what it is. I am the electrical code coach.